to Diamonds in the Rough TV. I'm your host, Gigi, and today we are going to be talking all about entrepreneurship. But before we get into that, I pulled up just a few statistics on the entrepreneurship stats for 2023. And what I found is that thinkimpact.com reports that entrepreneurship has truly been on the rise. In fact, there are 31 million entrepreneurs reported in the US alone, with 582 million worldwide. These are some crazy numbers, okay? I also found that entrepreneurship has increased by 29% since the pandemic, okay? Think about that. The amount of competition out there is absolutely incredible, which is why it is so important to have a really good marketing strategy, a really good plan, and a team behind you. Because a lot of times entrepreneurs, we get really excited about our business idea and we have the faith, we have the dream, we have the vision, but we don't know how to implement certain strategies to be able to grow and see our businesses scale. So according to Think Impact, there are about 20% of businesses that fail within the first 2 years of launching. If that's not enough for you, 45% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. So today we have a very special guest that is going to be teaching us some of the things that we need to know in order to build a sustainable business. Now, today's guest, he's a business growth advisor with a background serving as a U.S. federal officer. He is also the founder of Nuclear Networking, which has ranked in the top 5% in the nation on the Incorporated 5,000 list. Incredible, right? He also has sold many other successful businesses. Here joining us today is none other than Tyler Horsley. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Yes, thank you so much for joining. So I want to go ahead and dive right in and have you share with us what are some of the common factors that you find entrepreneurs are typically missing when they start their business that could help them actually increase their bottom line.
I will just speak from experience. So I think that in my experience, there's two ways to learn. One is from advice from mentors, and the other is through my own experience, which tends to be more expensive and more painful. So I'll share that side so maybe people can avoid it. But when building an organization, the mindset that I had initially that I've changed is I need to say yes to every single client, and I need to keep as much money in-house as I possibly can. And the two negatives of that is when you say yes to everyone with a good heart and an intent to help, sometimes you say yes to things that you're not actually great at.
Wow.
You're like, oh, I figured this out, right? I can do this. And what that can do is actually kind of like opens you up to a vulnerability of ruining the relationship. Wow. Because you're kind of going outside your area of expertise, doing things that maybe you shouldn't, or maybe that a partner would be better suited to do. Wow. And from a money perspective as well, saying yes to everything might add a little bit more to the bottom line, but ultimately what you're kind of doing, or what I did at least, was I'm making myself the bottleneck for scalability in my own company. So if I'm the person doing everything to save a couple extra bucks, wow, I'm going to hit a roof. I'm going to be working 80 hours a week, right, and now I can't grow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. And people don't realize when you're trying to wear all the hats and run every detail of the business, it can get out of control very quickly. And we're not able to genuinely scale on our own. And a lot of business owners think, okay, I can do this and do that. And by this year, I'm going to be here and there. And they miss the fact that you need a good, solid team. So I thank you for sharing your experience with us. So I would love to have you share with us, what are some of the fundamental keys to making a good sales experience? Because a lot of times entrepreneurs, that whole side of sales, it can be a little scary, and even for your customer, your potential customer, if we don't go into it the right way, it will turn them off, and it just makes for a really bad experience for everyone. So how can we make the sales experience a better process for everyone?
Yeah, I think mindset is everything, right? So I actually came from, you mentioned in my intro, some of my past experience, and even prior to that, I was working in restaurant. So I worked in restaurant for like a good 9 years, and you definitely learn how to talk to people quickly, yes, especially if you're serving them. So So the gift of gab, so to speak, has always been easier for me. But overall, I think the mindset, whether you're an engineer-minded entrepreneur and sales is scary, or you like talking, both of those require a good mindset of adding value and helping. And again, kind of like pulling back the charge in and solve everything model. I think that just like a relationship, listening and specifically listening for pains that you can solve and goals that you help them reach. So just a lot more questions. I have found a lot of success in that style of sales in the past. Is just asking them questions. Where are you suffering in your business? How can I help? What are you seeing? And kind of, letting them tell you how you can help and serve them, and then kind of putting the pieces together for them has been one of the best methods.
I love that. It sounds like being someone who is solution based is going to be, the key, but also really digging in to get to know the client or the customer, whether it's a product or a service, you're going to want to tailor it around that person's need. That's what I'm hearing.
Nailed it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tyler. So I want to go ahead and spin it just a little bit and have you share with us how you got into the business, how you got into marketing. What is your story?
Sure. My story, I'll try to condense it a little bit, but the reason I ended up in federal law enforcement was I followed my dad's footsteps. So I think it's natural for kiddos to kind of look up to their parents and maybe emulate them in some way, right? And so the heart behind that was still to help people. And so that's kind of how that translates over into marketing, which is probably an odd jump for a lot of listeners. It's like, how did you do that? The investigative skills actually translate quite well too. So do the profiling skills. So I'm able to use that right in marketing to kind of help build avatars, profiles, anticipate needs of people, have EQ and apply that to marketing as well. And reading the room, I think, is really important, not only just in marketing, but in business in general, sales specifically. And so I actually had a pretty significant health issue at one time. My adrenals almost completely failed. So I had major endocrine issues as a result of, and I hope entrepreneurs listen to this because this is real. And I was in my 20s, by the way. I was working too much.
Wow.
Just burning the candle at both ends. And eventually my body stopped. And I didn't think that was possible. Genuinely, I'm like, I'm in my 20s. I'm fine. Nope. So I had brain fog, basically lost a lot of cognitive function, emotional and cortisol stability, stuff that we take for granted that you don't think about because we're all healthy and we're like, oh, okay, fine. I can go to the day to day. People with health concerns know exactly what I'm talking about who are listening in, because it's kind of like a healthy person wants everything, but a sick person just wants one thing. And so the whole world kind of, really narrows. And so I had to quit my career in federal law enforcement. I'm actually happy that happened, as hard as that was, because it kind of rewired my mind, and now I'm here, and this is significantly better. I can help more people. I'm more scalable than I am one person over here. My life longevity probably increased.
I'm sure.
Just given the dangers of, it's a little less dangerous in business maybe.
Wow.
So that's my story, hyper condensed.
Thank you so much for sharing. I actually come from a law enforcement family background as well. My dad is a retired state trooper, and I saw the life of how much sacrifice it takes to build a career around law enforcement. But what I love that you shared is that you chose to step back so that you could take care of yourself. Ultimately, it's not worth it for you to give everything and then you have nothing left of yourself. You don't enjoy life. You have no quality of life. So while we're on the subject, I would love for you to share with us, how are you able to find time for yourself in your day-to-day routine to say, okay, I'm going to pull back. I'm going to take care of my mental health right now, take care of my spiritual health. When do you find time to do it? How do you incorporate that?
And I'd even add, I guess, for listeners, because some don't assume that quality time is important when growing a business, because they think, and this is just kind of how we're wired as entrepreneurs, I just have to do more, work harder, do more. And your car, your phone battery, literally everything else in your life is a constant reminder that if you don't maintenance those things, they break.
That's good.
And Yeah. So just for any non-believers out there, before I talk about the value of this stuff, like really take it seriously. Take it from me. Look up adrenal fatigue if you want to get scared. Like the like if you need fear to motivate you, there's plenty out there. But in being real, when you're building a company, I had to work more. I did have to work more. So what I'm about to say is kind of a luxury for some people. Like you have to kind of make it over a hump and make sure that you can at least pay your bills, and then you can start incorporating some of these things. But I refuse to work weekends.
Good for
I just,
you.
yeah, I refuse, no matter at what state. And that's because I understand the value of sanity and recharging and like, quote unquote, keeping the Sabbath holy, right? It's like making sure that you have time to rest.
Yes.
And one of the most recent things that I've done that was abnormal for me, that I'm really happy that I've done, because I'm talking like monotone right now. I'm not trying to, but I'm a very, very social, outgoing. Like if I sit at home, I have to get out and go do something because I'm just like go go go. But I actually started doing silent retreats.
Wow.
And what that looks like is like once a month. I'm a part of this leadership group. I know you have a lot of leadership group connections yourself as well after looking at your profile, but like, they have a large home out in the mountains. And so I go out there for like 6 or 8 hours. It's kind of led, it's not a meditation, but we get together as a group. They give you like 3 core questions to think about, like what questions haven't you been asking that you need to, what do you need to let go of that you haven't yet? Like just really open-ended, just helpful, inspirational questions. And then you read, meditate, pray, journal. That's all you do. No electronics. And man, the first time I went up there, it drove me nuts because I'm by myself and I'm like having to think, there's no distraction. But after, the 4th or 5th time, it's incredibly healing. It's helped me grow and actually come up with really great ideas up there. But what I've noticed most is I respond slower to anger and like all these things in life. I don't know, it's just better perception and more emotional control. And so I would highly recommend, if you can get away, try to do that once a month. You can do it, so.
Great advice. Thank you so much for sharing. I haven't had anyone come on yet and share that they've done these type of retreats, but I really appreciate you sharing that, because just taking the time to slow down the pace of life, because everything comes at you so fast sometimes, and before you know it, you can lose yourself. Take value in, having your weekends, taking care of your mental health, saying, you know what, I'm going to pull back and take care of me right now. As a busy entrepreneur, it can be uncomfortable at first because it's like, I feel like I'm wasting time. I'm just sitting here. I need to produce something. I need to do something. But no, sometimes you have to know when to say, my work speaks for itself. Now I'm going to pour back into me. So I want to go ahead and get into just some of the obstacles that you faced while building such a successful business, because I know that this did not come overnight, and then how your faith kept you grounded so that you could get through, any opposition, any trials, and ultimately make it to where you are today.
Yeah, so there's tons of obstacles. Everybody should know that. And you nailed it. It definitely doesn't come easy. Persistence and the ability to adapt quickly, I think, are the key markers for success. And notice, I'm not saying you have to have this much money or have this education or nothing like that. It's like, I think the difference between a lot of successful entrepreneurs and those who aren't is just they chose not to stop. Maybe something's broken in our heads. We just keep running. So that's just something that I would encourage. And you nailed it. It requires faith. You have to believe in, what you're doing, what you're trying to achieve. And obviously depending on, how you were raised as well. That's how I was raised. I was raised in a Christian home. So, I mean, that type of faith as well is certainly helpful when you're going through, really, really hard times. But I think 3 core things just to keep it bulletized. One is, how do you sell or find new leads? And recognizing the irony that I run a marketing and business growth agency right now. There's a couple different ways. You can cold call, you can cold email, you can go door to door, you can try to win one business at a time, and you can wing it. What I chose to do if you can apply this, any listeners to your industry, is provide free value. Because if you're in a service industry, typically your time is your value and your expertise is your value. So, and instead of just doing that on a business to business level, thinking, again, putting our scalability hats on, what I did instead is I went to other agencies who work with people that I want to work with. And so,
Nice.
yeah, in this example, I went to web design firms. All we did was traffic services, right? Driving leads. We didn't do web design. Most people create websites to be found and they want to generate business more often than not. So I went to those folks and I was like, anybody you work with, I will give them a free strategy session, free SEO analysis. That's all we did at that time. We do far more now. And that tended to work. And so maybe out of 20 people a month, now I'm meeting people, which I couldn't do on my own very easily, especially in 2020 era and, those types of things. And so I'm meeting people. They already know that I'm giving them something of value. So there's trust there. And there's this psychological rule of reciprocity where it's like, man, you just spent time with me and gave me free stuff. How can I help you? And so I'd say just offering free value is the number one thing. And then this is a little harder, but genuinely, I think you get what you pay for with due diligence and, using common sense, but you get what you pay for around having a quality team. Because a lot of people try to cut corners, save a couple bucks, and there's a time and a place for that, using contractors, Upwork and more. But where you really need to provide quality to your clients, don't outsource quality. You know what I mean? Like, make sure you always have your hand on that, because that's your face, your brand.
Right.
And if it starts going down the drain, like no one will work with you. And you did that to save a couple bucks and it ended up losing the whole contract. So those are a couple things. The last thing, since I said I'd deliver 3, is find a mentor early. Because if you would like to learn organically on your own and hit every brick wall at 100 miles an hour, that gets really expensive and really painful. That's that experience I mentioned earlier. But if you can find somebody who's already working in your space, who's done something a little better than you, or maybe they built and sold companies, they can shorten your learning from 10 years down to 1. And you're not hitting brick walls. They can save you a lot of pain. Highly recommend getting a mentor, but don't try to sell them. Keep that relationship sacred. So
those are wonderful tips. Thank you so much for sharing. And just to quickly recap, I love that you mentioned, for one, being the type of person that is not just focused on the sale, but also focused on fulfilling some type of need for the client and letting them know, hey, I want to offer you value for free, just to let you know, hey, I'm here to actually help you. I'm not just here for the sale. I can genuinely provide quality for you, and I care about your best interests. And you also mentioned the importance of having a good team, but also remaining accountable as a leader, because your face is on that brand. So many times business owners say, okay, I'm comfortable enough to bring in other people, I can kick my feet up, but it's so crucial to stay in the foundation of the business and to keep your eyes on all aspects of the business. You want to make sure that your business is founded on integrity, that your customers are being taken care of in the best way possible. And when your team knows that you are, slacking in that area, unfortunately, they kind of start to also slack as well, and your customers can feel it. So those are very important tips. Thank you so much for sharing. So I do want my audience to know that Tyler is also a philanthropist who has built his team and his business around the value of integrity. So in today's surprise trivia, I actually came up with a few quick scenarios. I want to get a feel for how Tyler would handle certain situations. I just want to see, how would you handle a situation where, let's say, a customer has been working with your team for about 30 days or so, and they're beginning to feel a little dissatisfied because they feel that they're not seeing growth as fast as they expected in the first 30 days. How do you reassure that type of customer?
Sure. So I think what's really important, and I've learned this the hard way, you can be the smartest, most technical person in the world and know everything. If your customer doesn't clearly articulate that value or understand, none of that matters.
Wow.
And so you could have the keys to the kingdom and you're like, no, just trust me. All this is going to work if you do X, Y, and Z. If they don't understand that you're communicating is not received, that's all going to fall apart. Ultimately, all this really comes down to trust, not even results, to be honest. Like, results are important, but I've had situations where we are doing really well, but because the customer doesn't understand the results, like the relationship falls apart. I've also had situations where we're not doing great, but we have a great relationship. And so we trust each other and we can move forward and continue testing.
Wow.
So a couple other things I guess I would think of in anybody in service industry. A lot of these problems, opportunities, whatever you want to call them, can be avoided early during the sales process before you start working with them if you set clear expectations up front.
That's good.
And good paper makes good friends. So have them sign that they understand these things are true. And so assuming you've done all that, because by the way, you still can and you'll still get that 30-day call sometimes, respectfully walking through, here's the statement of work, here's what we both agreed to, here's what we've done, and here's where emotional intelligence comes into play. But if you can figure out if they're performance driven or what I would call, because I'm from the Midwest originally, like a blue collar manager. If they're a blue collar manager, they just want to see that your team's doing tons of busy work. Wow. So it's like, oh, show them behind the curtain. We've already put in 24 hours. Hours must correlate to value. I'm digging at myself. Nobody listening out there, but like, I work a lot in AI and more, and hours don't always correlate to value, but I just politely reminding them and more, we have, and better late than never, but not soon enough. I'd highly recommend, instead of trying to save money and have specific people do everything at your organization, especially if you're in service, a customer success department or customer success person. If I get those calls, I escalate to that person who specializes in, let me listen to what you're saying. Let me check and be your liaison and your friend. And let's like figure this out. Hey, good news. I went back to the team. We did do a lot of this. We could do a little bit more of this if that's helpful, or we can't do that. Does that make sense? It's just communication at the end of the day and respect. So.
Great answer. And I love that you highlighted, communicating what they can expect up front, laying it out on paper, making sure, hey, we both agreed that this is the process. You have to allow the process to take its course. So the second scenario is a potential customer is concerned after having a previous bad experience with another marketing agency, and they want to know if you'll keep them involved in updates and, just make them feel a part of the whole process because, the last company they worked with took advantage of them. So how do you reassure this type of customer?
A couple of ways. So there is, I'll just be candid and open, like there's the right answer and then there's the real answer as well. So I'm going to give you both. The right answer is over communicating or carefully communicating up front and sending really clear boundaries. I call that broken heart syndrome. So a lot of people have that. They'll go off and I'll also tell you from a root cause analysis, and this doesn't apply to everyone, but statistically, because I like numbers, what I see most often is people went the cheap route and they hired somebody for nothing and then they got nothing in return and now they don't trust anybody. And so think about, and I know this is really weird, but like think about relationships. If you date somebody who's not a great person and you didn't do a lot of due diligence and now you don't trust anyone else in your future, it's not really fair to that future. There's Mr. Right now and Mr. Right. You know what I mean? So with all of those things in mind, I would encourage the buyer out there, and I would do this like, look, if we're not the right fit, that's totally okay, but I'm going to tell you the truth, whether it's good or bad, and here's what we've seen, and here's our negative reviews, and here's how we handled those, and here's our positive reviews. Here's the exact scope, line by line, of what's going to happen, what's not going to happen, what we can guarantee and what we can't. Does that make you feel better? Most marketing companies don't actually outline those things. It's very ambiguous. You're buying an acronym and you hope that it works. So we've put together additional documentation, obviously, presenting ourselves with an understanding ear, but at the same point in time, we actually won't go above and beyond to hyper customize a red carpet experience for somebody who doesn't trust anyone, because now that person needs 80 hours a week of my team's time. And that's not necessarily scalable, right? And so it's kind of like hard because you want to help them, but at some point in time, it still requires mutual trust. And so if we can outline everything clearly on paper and show them that there are guarantees around deliverables, but also tell them, hey, we only meet once a month. We'll do check-ins, we'll do X, Y, and Z, and show you what we're doing. It's kind of a give and take. And I've done the opposite. Had we had this conversation 3 years ago, do anything you can, make a great experience for you. It's like, man, you've now said no to 10 other clients that are waiting to work with you
Wow.
because you're working with one that takes all your time. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's a very good point that I think a lot of business owners can benefit from is not over catering to a particular customer who at the end of the day, you have those kinds of people that are just hard to please and they just don't really want to be pleased or they're always going to find something wrong. Is it even worth it to give all of this effort and energy to this one person and then we're missing out on other clients? A lot of business owners, like you mentioned, you did before, we would try to overextend ourselves to make this one individual feel like they can trust us. But at the end of the day, if you have kept communication with them and you let them know what to expect, you've shown them that you have genuine interest in them, it's up to them whether to trust you or not. So you can't force the trust there. And so I love that you mentioned that as well. That was very key, I believe, in just really having that balance. So I appreciate that. And the third and final question is, you have a client who recently got hacked. Their social media account was hacked and they're like, oh my goodness, was it because you all have my information? They're starting to be concerned about security. They want to make sure that their information is secure with your team.
Sure. So I'm going to speak to, again, kind of backing up a little bit. It's super important for every business owner and highly recommend this because if you're in this situation, what you would like to have had happen prior, which happens with us, is they signed a terms and conditions sheet.
Right.
And you have an attorney, not you, not ChatGTP, but a real attorney.
That's good.
Reading that over, like indemnifying you, covering you, and more. And that's not because if you burn the house down, it's not your fault. No, you should still be there. But to be clear, different scenarios are if people have less of an understanding about what you're doing, you're just the computer internet people. And apparently, if they can't log into their bank account, it's probably your fault. I'm making stuff on purpose, but it's like perception is reality for a lot of people. And so it's really important for every business owner to be buttoned up legally. You know, you may not have even access to their Facebook or whatever that is. So I just want to leave room for those instances. So make sure that you're papered well, that they can read what you're responsible for, what you're not. And ideally, and here's what we do, we have in there what we're doing. If we log in, we're installing this plugin and then we log out and that's it. And a lot of these platforms, you can look at login records, who logged in, who did what, et cetera. All that aside, we also have an entire segment in there about cybersecurity. We are a marketing company. We are not a cybersecurity company. And so if somebody's leaving their doors unlocked at home and they're hiring you to clean their home and then their home gets robbed 2 weeks later, I'm not responsible for your doors being locked. I'm just cleaning the carpets, right? So all those things, that's more business or owner oriented, I realize. But from a client perspective, we have partners where, so for one, we have reps at those social media accounts. Man, that's really bad. You got hacked. I just helped my dad get his unhacked. He clicked a link. Don't click links if it looks like it's weird on Facebook. So just throwing that out there. But, just practices, those types of things. But also it's like, hey, look, here's 3 partners we have. They do work in cybersecurity. Do you want them to do a free audit and take a look and see if this is recoverable? And so that's kind of how we would, you don't want to, you want to have maybe a solution, even if you're not offering it, try to introduce them to people and add value. So
I really like that you said you would try to reassure them by offering them resources to get the help that they need for maybe a cybersecurity audit and things of that nature. You also mentioned the importance of taking it seriously to invest in the legal documentation, have a lawyer or attorney look things over, because at the end of the day, there are certain things it's not worth it to try to take the cheap route and figure it out ourselves and download a Google template of our contracts. We need a professional to look things over to cover all of the ins and outs. So I appreciate you bringing that up as well. Thank
experience,
you so much.
That's it. Nothing special other than pain and a lot of memory from that. You learn the hard way sometimes, but yeah.
I'm sure. I'd love for you to share with the audience where they can find you.
Sure. Yeah, you can email me, tyler@nuclearnetworking.com. Or you can connect with me on LinkedIn with a caveat. I don't check the inbox. No, I don't know about you, but I get about 150 spam mail a day. So email is your best bet.
Awesome, Tyler. Thank you so much again for coming on and sharing your empowering message and your advice with us. It was greatly appreciated.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you all so much for sticking around for today's episode. I do hope that you were able to take away something empowering from today's guest. And if you like this type of content, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe to stay tuned for future episodes. Any topics that you would like to be covered on the show, you can feel free to leave that down in the comments section below as well. And I'll see you all next time.